Alright, so this is the next video. In this video tutorial, I'm gonna go over skinning, meaning to what they call binding the mesh to the bones, right? So, and also is to explain and show and test the rigging process. I mean the articulation, to test the articulation. So in this example here, right, that's pre-made. It just has the bones and the mesh are connected. So if I grab this, again, when I say testing the articulation of the bones, right, so not bad. Not bad at all. Not bad. Not bad. This is what I mean by when you're testing the articulation. This is fine, right? These are just secondary stuff to help maintain the volume and silhouette when doing more crazy poses. See? Yeah. And then you grab all the bones and you zero out only the rotation. I repeat, you only zero out the rotation. Never ever zero out the translate X, Y, and Z. If you do that, you will blow something up, and oftentimes you cannot undo it in rigging. I repeat, oftentimes you cannot undo things in rigging, and that's hence the reason why I mentioned about saving after each major milestone. There's reasons why I mentioned some specific things. Yeah, anyway, so first thing I want to do in regards to skinning is to unlock the mesh from the channel box. I repeat, you need to have layers for the bones, you need to have layers for the mesh. Ultra important. I will be grading and looking for these. Anyway, what I want to do first is talk about order of selection. I like to select the P root joint, right? The root joint. In other tutorials, I may have selected entire bones, right? But now I'm just thinking, just select the root joint, then shift select the mesh. Right, I like to do it from the outliner, and then should I mention this? All right, I'm gonna mention this. Make sure that the bones, right, that you can see them so that they're right down the middle. This is a side view, that they're right down the middle. See? They are right down the middle. This midline, this is the side view, right? Top view as well. This is the top view. It's right down the middle, right, from left to right, right down the middle. Front view, it's clean. See? Right? There's no rotations in the bone nub. Rotations like where it's off kilter, right? This type of rotation is fine, but you notice how everything is up and down, the crosshairs, right? See, crosshairs are straight up and down. I forgot to mention that, or I need to reiterate and mention that. Anyway, I'm gonna turn on the mesh. What I'm gonna do next is select the root joint. Again, you select the root joint, then you shift select the mesh, then you go into skin, right? Before we were skeleton, now we're in skin. I'm gonna tear this off. I need to bind the skin, I want the option box for the bind skin. So because I want to put on the shelf, I'm gonna do Control Shift, left click it, the option box, bam. Then I need also the Unbind Skin, right? And option box as well, Control Shift, left click. Then I guess that's it for that. Yeah. Okay. I'm gonna, so I lost the selection. I'm gonna select the root joint, shift select the mesh. I'm gonna click on the smooth bind skin options. Alright, so it should be joint hierarchy, meaning that I can just select the root joint and I'll, grab everything I need. I'm gonna change the bind method to geodesic voxel, right? Don't bother asking me what it is. I just seen other riggers choose this with great results. Hence, I'm just gonna copy their recipe, and I'm just using geodesic voxel. This one is dual quaternion. It's been suggested to me by Professor Kazmarek. Right, before I used to use weighted blend, but now dual quaternion, right? Dual quaternion. Then I'm gonna leave that alone. Weight distribution, leave it alone. Allow multiple bind poses, whatever. Max influence, I'm gonna just set it to 3. I have this checked on. Remove unused influences. Uncheck. I used to have colorize select skeleton on, right? But now I don't, because it's just, it colors it nice, interesting colors, right? But it gets in the way of the animation controllers, because those are colored as well. So when you have a whole bunch of colored stuff all over the place, it just drives you mad. So uncheck that. Uncheck this. Uncheck. Fall off 0.2. Right? In the previous videos, I had it like, I don't know, like 0.3 or 0.4 or whatever. Just leave it at 0.2. Resolution 1024. And then this is checked on. This is important. Resolution 1024. And this. There's some flexibility with this and this, but you could just leave it like this. But for sure, this 1024. Leave this alone. Leave this alone. Apply and close. It's going to take a little bit of time, right? Alright, so on a side note, right, here's one of my older PDFs for rigging. As you can see here, this was previously where I used weighted blend, but now we're using dual quaternion, right? So if you had followed through and just use it like weighted blend, it's fine, because you can always go back and change the settings within the rig, meaning like in here, right? Under you select the mesh, and then skin cluster 1, and then see skinning method, dual quaternion, click it, you can choose weighted blend, and see, not much of a difference, right? Or dual quaternion. Well, there is a difference later on when you get more extreme poses and stuff, but yeah, so don't panic. As well as here, I have max influence at 4. This time around, I have it at 3. And then this example, I have it set the max influence to 2, I believe, instead of 3, or instead of 4. So there's some subtle stuff, but for the most part, they're very similar and how it influences the mesh. One is a different story. Yeah, I've done some tests. I rather prefer not one, but like 2 or 3 or 4, but probably between like 2 or 3, right? One gets a little bit gnarly, how the mesh deforms. So yeah, anyway, so I just wanted to clarify that in case some people complain or whatever, right? Anyway, so that's that. If I select the mesh, you'll notice that, so this was skinned, right? P mesh, you will notice how this is grayed out. This means it is locked, that you cannot move it, right? If I select it, see it's grayed out. You cannot move it. It's just a safety feature that it does when you skin it. You will see here skin cluster 1. That tells you that there's a skin binding that we just did. This P underscore mesh, that's just, say, inputs, saying that we have a display layer for it, see? And this is the skin cluster. And D.O.Creative, blah, blah, blah. Leave this stuff alone. Don't mess with it. So I'm just explaining all that. Next step is to do Delta Mush. I don't know why it's named something weird like Delta Mush, right? But I'll show what that does. I've shown it in other videos, but I'll show in this video as well. So this is the skin is binded, right? But if I were to select the bone and if I were to articulate it, see this nasty fugly situation that happens, right? See this? Super nasty. If we're not using the little magical recipe feature called the Delta Mush, if that is not being used, the only way to resolve this is through the torturous process of painting weights, right? But since we can use Delta Mush, we can avoid that. You can avoid that nightmare. It's a freaking nightmare, which you can reserve into the next upper class. Yeah, we can see that torturous learning experience into the next class. Anyway, I'm gonna select the mesh and I'm gonna apply the Delta Mush, right? So previously we were under rigging, right? We're gonna switch it up and go into animation, because under animation and its menu, we want to look under deform. So animation, deform, click it, and then I need the Delta Mush option box. Control Shift left click, pop. This is the Delta Mush icon option box. I want to click it. So what you do is you select the mesh, right? You go in here, you leave everything in here alone, right? The smoothing iterations, right? Let's say edit, reset, right? Reset it. In the PDFs, I don't know what I mentioned. Smoothing iterations to 40, right? Everything else is default, but this is the default, right? You could put 40, right? But here's the thing though. Again, this is a disclaimer I mentioned in the past. This here determines a lot regarding the mesh, right? Each shape of the mesh, there's a lot of variability, right? So let's just say we go with the default, which is 10, and then you hit apply, and it's done. Right, delta mush. This is different from skinning. Okay. Now, if I were to go in, right, so it's a lot better, right, but it's still funky. See, it does some weird stuff ish, right? But if I were to go into the delta mush, and you see this here, smoothing iterations, right? If I make it to say 100 instead of the 10, which is default, see, this is what I want to get across, versus 40, which is in the PDF, right, which is better than 10, right? But if I set it to 100 under the smoothing iterations for specifically delta mush, there, or you set it to like say 200, there, see, that's why there's a lot of variability. Some meshes I set it to 10, some meshes I set it to 200 or 100. Please keep that in mind. Hopefully whoever is watching this, right? Maybe I like, I don't know, 150 instead of 200. Yeah, perfect balance, I think. I'll grab this, or I'll grab the entire bones and just type in 0 for the rotate, just the rotate. There. So that is pretty much the topic of this video, skinning and delta mush. Before I go, I want to talk about one last thing. So let's say that, you know, you did the skinning and you're testing things out, right? Let's say some things where you're like, you know what, maybe you had forgotten to place an extra bone here or here for important pivot points, right? Let's say you need to, you're thinking like, hey, you know what, this right here could use another bone, right? Because the more strategically that you place bones strategically, the smoother the deformation is gonna be. Right? So let's say you change your mind, you're like, you know what, I think I want to place one more bone here, or you know what, I think I want to get rid of one more bone here. You can do that. What you do is you select the mesh. I repeat, you only select the mesh, right? As you can see, delta mush and skin cluster, which is skin binding. And if you want to unbind it, right, unskin it, you go into rigging, and then you go into skin, and then you go into this thing called unbind the skin option box. This is the unbind skin option box. You click it, delete history, remove color joints, yep, unbind all, yep, apply. Now this is, the skinning is unbinded, officially unbinded, rather than just deleting history. And last thing I need to get rid of is the delta mush. And the way you get rid of the delta mush is to delete history, which is here. Sometimes I'm lazy, so I go edit, delete by type, history, and then I do Control Shift left click, and there's the history icon. Or Alt Shift D, then you gotta delete history and then get rid of the delta mush. That's how you unbind it, and then you can go back in and you know, put more joints or take away more joints, right? Side note, if you want to disconnect bones, right, let's say you select this bone, you press Shift P. That's how you disconnect bones. You select this, Shift P to disconnect. If you want to connect it, you select the end, you shift select that, you press P. right? You want to disconnect, Shift P. That's how you disconnect. And then you can place more bones or take away bones and go from there. Yeah, I did mention this in the past videos and whatnot, so I'm just gonna mention it again. And one other thing I want to also mention, let's say if you have all the bones, right, and you want to kind of move around the bones, you can either do this, right, but look what happens when you grab this and then you move. See what happens? But a more accurate way is to actually be in the front view and then press D as in David. And when you press D as in David, you isolate one section to move around the bones. I do not recommend going anywhere near the circle area. You want to move the arrows. Be careful when it says align, because when it says align, it's gonna try to snap to something. So again, you press D as in David to manually go in and carefully move the placement of the bones without moving the entire chain. So for example, I want this. Let's say I want to rearrange the placement of this bone. Press D as in David, and then move, 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 move. That's how you can change the location of the bone without affecting the entire hierarchy. Yeah, so that's the other thing I wanted to mention. All of these are mentioned. Alright, so I had to pause the video for a quick second. So right, so like I said just before I paused it, all these things are mentioned in this specific tutorial series that I made many months ago. Alphabet rigging specific topics, how to test your alphabet rig, alphabet mesh and joint chain for range of motion articulation, how to troubleshoot and maybe save a rig with mistakes, which controller style to use, blah blah blah, how to check your animation controllers, how to interconnect, blah 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 blah, all this stuff, right? So just another reminder, I sent emails talking about this multiple times. I've talked about it multiple times in class. I'm mentioning it again just in case anyone tries to throw me under the bus. It's all there. Alright, so that's the last thing I wanted to mention. Yeah, next tutorial I'm gonna go over placing controllers. Yeah, alright, bye.